Hello and welcome. Today's infographic is taking a bit of a different approach in that I thought it would be interesting to put together an animated infographic that I think better illustrates the recovery trajectory of some of the major gaming jurisdictions that we cover. As you can see here, I'm actually starting the timeline from 2015 because I thought it'd be good to see where growth was headed before we sort of hit this year's pandemic in 2020 and kind of where everything will go from then until 2025. All the data here is grabbed from the IMF World Economic Report, which was the latest version of it was released just this month. So, maybe the first thing I want to talk about is Macau. We already know that Macau's GDP has been sort of slipping and fluctuating over the last few years. It took a huge hit in 2015 due to that anti-corruption drive. But come 2020, and we're seeing the biggest contraction in GDP ever before. I think the IMF is now expecting a 52.3% contraction in GDP due to the coronavirus. But before all of that, what I thought is interesting is that we can sort of see a pack leadership in terms of year-on-year GDP between a handful of countries: Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar, Philippines, Laos, and China. All the way to 2020, and we are feeling the full brunt of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we can see who the main survivors are. We're seeing a lot of activity in Myanmar lately, and it's well known that China is one of the first to set foot on its recovery journey ahead of other countries. And this is just a quote from the IMF World Economic Report, saying that recent data suggests that many economies have started to recover at a faster pace than anticipated after reopening from the Great Lockdown. And that definitely appears to be the case for China. 2021, and there's an expectation that the globe will see a partial recovery from the deep recession. Global growth is expected to be around negative 4.4%. And this is spurred by recovery that has started to take place in the third quarter of this year. Macau is expecting quite a rebound, more than others, and that makes sense given that China's opened up travel between itself and Macau in September. And with China's recovery, as you will see, Macau's recovery as well. But all the countries that we're focusing on here will report a positive growth compared to the previous year, which is a good sign. And finally, these are the GDP growth projections for 2025. I won't go into too much detail about the how and why, but I will put an embed of this animated graph below for your reference. You can look at that in your own time. If you're interested in the IMF World Economic Report, like I said, which is where all this data comes from, I'll put a link down below in this post as well. To stay up to date with the latest news from Asia Gaming Brief, be sure to subscribe to our daily e-brief, which we put out every morning.